He stepped into Shaolin Temple and encountered his own nemesis, Ling Feng. Now the latter is also the senior monk in the temple, his scolding as easy as picking up something from a bag. Seeing the Feng retreat a few steps, he felt very unwilling in his heart, so he directly drew his gun to threaten. As soon as he finished speaking, a handsome man entered outside Shaolin Temple, and he was Hou Jie, a warlord famous throughout Bingbing City. It turns out that just now, Hou Jie's subordinate Cao Man was ordered to hunt down the enemy leader, Hou Long, to save his life, could only drag his wounded body and flee to Shaolin Temple. Thus, the scene at the beginning happened. Cao Man led his troops to cause chaos at Shaolin Temple, but he was stopped by the senior monk. After learning of Cao Man's reckless behavior, Hou Jie silently reprimanded his subordinate in front of everyone. Hou Jie turned to persuade the abbot to let Shaolin Temple release Hou Long. But the abbot, always compassionate, would not be intimidated by the other's momentum. At this moment, Hou Long, not wanting to involve the monks of Shaolin, chose to voluntarily surrender all his possessions, hoping the other side would spare his family and old folks. Hearing this, Hou Jie looked pained. Just when everyone thought Hou Jie would let Hou Long go, unexpectedly, in the next second, it seemed they all underestimated Hou Jie's ruthlessness. After all, no one wants their enemies to be leisurely outside. Thus, Hou Jie led his army and left triumphantly, not forgetting to write humiliating words on the plaque of Shaolin Temple before leaving. In this way, Hou Jie, who killed Hou Long, now dominates Bingbing City, becoming one of the most influential warlords. The only one who can rival him is his sworn brother, Song Hu. And in his eyes, Song Hu is not a good match. He saw the other person walking towards him with a face full of disdain. Even more outrageous, he actually forced Hou Jie to set a marriage in front of so many people. Hearing this, Hou Jie could only smile bitterly and agree. The scene shifted. Cao Man was in the courtyard, testing the feel of a new weapon, the Gatling gun. It turns out, this is a tactic used by foreigners to curry favor with warlords, their goal being to get Hou Jie to agree to build railways around Bingbing City. At this moment, Hou Jie's face was serious, but Cao Man didn't notice his displeasure. He was just praising the exquisite weapon. However, Hou Jie paid no attention and directly rejected the foreigner's request. The foreigners left Hou's residence angrily. It turns out that, although Hou Jie is a warlord, he still bears deep national righteousness. To make him betray the country's interests is simply unrealistic. That night, after caring for his daughter, Hou Jie remembered the marriage agreement with Song Hu. So he summoned Cao Man and set up a banquet, aiming to make Song Hu go and never return. Soon, Song Hu arrived with his family to attend the feast. By then, he had lost his daytime arrogance, more like a reasonable and understanding big brother. However, at this moment, Hou Jie was already at the point of no return and had to act. Just as he was about to knock on the table to signal Cao Man outside to make a move, Song Hu grabbed his hand and said, "Since we are family, let him speak openly if he has something to say." Song Hu said he had taken control of Bingbing City and it all belonged to him. Hearing this, Hou Jie was also moved by Song Hu's heartfelt words. In the end, he did not knock on the table. But alas, his subordinates hurriedly arrived and handed Song Hu a note. The content was a reminder that Hou Jie intended to attack him. After reading the note, Song Hu was furious. He couldn't believe Hou Jie would use such means against him, so he stood up and scolded him fiercely. After hearing gunfire inside the house, Cao Man, hiding in the backyard, revealed a strange smile. It turned out he had been waiting for this opportunity, the very moment Hou Jie and Song Hu turned against each other. At this moment inside the house, after Hou Jie shot and knocked down Song Hu, he was about to get up and leave. But unexpectedly, two large axes suddenly flew in through the window. Fortunately, he was quick and dodged this attack. But the fallen Hou Jie only had a pistol for self-defense. At this critical moment, Song Hu, using his last bit of strength, fired a shot to save him. With that, Song Hu swallowed his final breath. Meanwhile, the assassins broke in and fought with Hou Jie. In his grief and anger, Hou Jie unleashed an astonishing combat power. Fighting 10 enemies alone was no problem. But Hou Jie's family was not so lucky. Despite his wife fighting desperately against the assassins, his daughter Jing Neng was hit by a carriage while fleeing and was seriously injured on the spot. Fortunately, Hou Jie, who had broken through the encirclement, saw the scene. He quickly went to check his daughter's injuries, then seized the carriage and led his daughter to break out of the siege. Along the way, Cao Man's subordinate, Gui Jiaoqi, relentlessly pursued them, ultimately forcing them into a desperate situation. Hou Jie could only choose to jump off the mountain with his daughter to escape, which further worsened her injuries. The next morning, Hou Jie carried his daughter and ran to Shaolin Temple, pleading with the abbot of Shaolin to help treat Jing Neng. But when a senior monk came forward to check, he found that Jing Neng's injuries were too severe and it was beyond saving. Yet Hou Jie still refused to believe it. He made a bold vow: if he couldn't save Jing Neng, he would lead his men to level the entire Shaolin Temple. And just as he was hysterical, his wife forcefully pushed him, trying to calm him down. But despite this, Hou Jie went berserk. Unable to accept the reality, he He once again directed his anger at the monks of Shaolin Temple. To prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, Shaolin Temple had no choice but to use the Arhat staff technique to subdue him. Only then did Hou Jie finally calm down. In the days that followed, Hou Jie gradually recovered under the care of the Shaolin monks. But he still couldn't let go of his hatred, and whenever he had free time, he vented his emotions in the fields. But suddenly, on this day, he happened to fall into a hunting trap. Just as he collapsed on the ground in great pain, the cook in the temple, Wu Dao, heard the sound and hurried over, inquiring about his injuries. It turned out that this trap was originally used by him to catch poultry, but unfortunately, it was stepped on by Hou Jie. Since then, Hou Jie has been living with Wu Dao every day. It's also because Wu Dao is straightforward and outspoken. He revealed Hou Jie's bitter past one by one, causing Hou Jie to cry even over a simple bowl of plain noodles. The scene shifts to the Hou residence due to Cao Man's strong rise to power. All the loyal subordinates of Hou Jie were suppressed. One of them wanted to warn Cao Man not to forget gratitude and repay kindness, but unfortunately, he couldn't get through to him, and instead, he was executed on the spot. Since then, no one in the Hou household dared to speak against him. To prevent Hou Jie from making a comeback, Cao Man issued a bounty on his head, offering a reward for his capture. That day, Wu Dao brought back the notice of the bounty and informed Hou Jie. At that moment, Hou Jie realized it was all Cao Man's deliberate arrangement. His goal was naturally to replace him. After learning the truth, Hou Jie regretted his past choices. Perhaps if he hadn't competed with Song Hu for power, Cao Man wouldn't have taken advantage of the situation, and he wouldn't have ended up with his family destroyed. To forget fame and profit, he resolutely decided to shave his head and become a monk. The next day, he knelt before the abbot of Shaolin, requesting to be accepted. Buddhism is inherently about saving those with affinity, and the abbot was pleased to see Hou Jie awaken himself and was very satisfied. So, the abbot arranged for him to follow Wu Dao in the future to cultivate Buddhist teachings. Thus, Hou Jie began his secluded life at Shaolin Temple. In daily life, he followed the cook Wu Dao to distribute food on the street, helping the poor and suffering. Perhaps he had never done such hard labor before, and he appeared quite helpless on sight. Wu Dao, noticing his awkwardness, kindly extended a helping hand. With Wu Dao's help, Hou Jie performed better and better in the temple, and in his spare time, he studied Buddhist scriptures, cultivating himself. Soon after, he went to the temple's martial arts ground to observe the disciples practicing martial arts. But due to a previous conflict with a senior brother, he could only wait until everyone was resting before going over. Perhaps his sincerity moved Jing Neng, who then knew he had let go of hatred, sincerely turned to Buddhism, and only then was he truly accepted. In this way, Hou Jie's life at Shaolin became more and more stable. And the abbot, witnessing this, bestowed upon him a dharma name, Jing Ju. At night, Hou Jie wandered in the backyard, and he happened to see a child practicing boxing. Intrigued, he didn't care about the other's age, but treated him as a fellow disciple practicing martial arts together. This scene was also seen by the abbot and Wu Dao from a distance. They seemed quite pleased with Hou Jie's current situation. They all looked at him with approval. However, life would not go as smoothly as they wished. On the other side, Cao Man was stationed at the Shuaifu in Dingfeng City. He not only advocated cooperation with foreigners, but also helped them build railways and occupied national treasures. Countless subjects became tools for his wealth and power accumulation. Many ambitious youths were oppressed and sent to the mountains as laborers. That day, Hou Jie was distributing grain in the town when he unintentionally overheard this terrible news. One of the old mother's sons had not returned for several days. To find out the truth, Hou Jie went to investigate in a hidden forest that night. To his surprise, the soldiers were digging and burying a large number of young people's bodies. And all of this was Cao Man's doing. Angrily, he spoke out without hesitation. When the soldiers saw Hou Jie, they looked like ghosts, terrified and fleeing in fear. So he revealed the truth. After learning the cause, Hou Jie did not trouble the soldiers, but with his own strength, loaded all the bodies onto carts and took them away. Despite exhausting all his strength, he ultimately succeeded. When the villagers saw their loved ones' bodies, they were grief-stricken. The Shaolin monks, upon seeing this, could only silently recite prayers and wish them blessings. Soon, news of Hou Jie's survival spread to Cao Man. Thus, he led his army back to Shaolin Temple to seize people. Facing Cao Man's overwhelming army, the senior monks initially wanted Hou Jie to retreat. But he knew that if he did not step forward, the entire Shaolin Temple would pay a heavy price. So, he and the senior monks devised a clever plan. In the main hall, Cao Man patiently waited for Hou Jie to appear. But as soon as he stepped out, he slapped him hard. At this moment, Shaolin monks had already infiltrated outside Cao's residence, ready to assist Hou Jie from inside and outside. Hou Jie, upon arriving at Cao's residence, appeared relaxed and confident. But when he saw his wife being tortured by Cao Man, he could no longer hold back, and he desperately begged Cao Man. At this critical moment, the Shaolin monks launched a surprise attack on Cao's residence successfully. Led by the senior monk, they rescued the trapped villagers and elders. This also caught Cao Man off guard. But just as their plan was proceeding smoothly, Cao Man led his men to stop the siege. Ghost Butchie was the first to strike, kicking the senior monk. To protect the others' retreat, he chose to close the main gate tightly. At this moment, Cao Man could no longer tolerate him, and he drew the dagger from his gun, stabbing the senior monk. Finally, he nailed him to the door, rendering him immobile. This was considered revenge for the previous film. Thus, Shaolin Temple's first involvement in the Jianghu incident was a great success. Countless families torn apart by separation are reborn anew. Seeing this, the monks felt greatly relieved. But once war is involved, Shaolin Temple can no longer withdraw from the conflict. Therefore, Hou Jie still confided his worries to Wudo. Sure enough, not long after, Cao Man regrouped his forces. They arrived outside Shaolin Temple. Not only that, this time he had support from foreign artillery. At their command, accompanied by the explosion of Shaolin Temple's gates, the army charged straight into the dragon's lair, engaging in fierce battles with Shaolin disciples. But the monks only had swords, spears, and wooden sticks to resist. Faced with the soldiers' real guns and live ammunition, they could only use their bodies to block. Thus, the scene became extremely brutal. Meanwhile, on the side of second senior brother, he fought fiercely with Cao Man's top general, Ghostfoot 7, for dozens of rounds. Ultimately, both sides perished together, fighting to the death on the spot. On Hou Jie's side, he was inside Shaolin Temple waiting for the decisive battle with Cao Man. Hou Jie, who had converted to Buddhism, immediately began brainwashing him upon meeting. But Cao Man had long stopped listening, so both sides could only fight fiercely. After a series of punches and kicks, neither side emerged as the victor. However, at this moment, the foreign artillery suddenly bombed the entire temple into ruins. At this point, the room where Cao Man and the others were was also hit by cannon fire. In a critical moment, the loyal Hou Jie, to save Cao Man, struggled to push him away. But he himself was crushed under the rubble. Looking at his former elder brother, Cao Man finally regretted his collusion with foreigners and ended up in such a dire situation. He slowly walked out of the temple in despair, slumping to the ground, overwhelmed with grief.